Good morning, family. It is Black History Month, and today is a day we've decided here at First Unity to set aside more of our intention and activity to see that and embrace it and be grateful for it. One of the voices of progress during the time of the Civil Rights Movement was an individual named James Baldwin. Some of you may be familiar with James Baldwin, who was such a tremendous creative mind. And he said, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. This is the feeling that we sometimes get when we feel hopeless. And the truth is, you're never hopeless. You may feel helpless at times, but never hopeless. And don't allow anything to take your hope. And Dr. King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I'm going to try not to be too emotional today. Good luck, right? I'm already an emotional individual. But when Reverend Mickey read her title, I think I started growing hair here. That's the plus to goosebumps, right? Now, what was the title again? United State of Consciousness. And it was radical interconnectedness. That was the line. You're not going to believe this, or you will. The title of my talk today is The Radical Power of Oneness. And how it is used and abused in New Thought circles to bypass. We're one, so racism's not real. No, it's not. In the grand scheme, it's not, but it is felt. It is experienced by people who are oppressed through racism. We're all one, so homophobia is not real. In the grand scheme of the celestials, no, it's a creation of human beings. But it's still felt by people who experience it. We're all one, so human trafficking's not real. Let's just don't think about it and it'll go away. And that it's happening every day, especially on days like today. The Super Bowl happens to be one of the spaces where a lot of that transpires. And we like to ignore it because we'd rather watch people run around chasing a pigskin and ignore the fact that it's happening in our world. Well, we're all one, so whoever's president doesn't matter. But those presidential decisions sure affect people who are not just spiritual beings, but human beings and psychological beings. But let me tell you, there's a difference between power and greatness. Can I say that again? There's a difference between power and greatness. And greatness is not measured by the power that you wield. Measuring greatness is more by the good effect, the positive effect that you make on humanity while you're here. And power just comes with titles. And people who wield it to harm others have no idea what greatness is. And no matter how much they try to tell themselves and others that they're great, the greatness is in them. It's possible. But greatness is not measured by how much power you have. Greatness is really measured by your ability to utilize your power to make the world a better place to live for everyone. That's what greatness is measured by. So I want to chat with us for a few moments today, and I do want to make a disclaimer up front. These views are not necessarily the views of the board or the leadership or the spiritual support team or the music team of First Unity Spiritual Campus, because if I want you to blame anyone for discomfort today, you can lay that blame at my doorstep. I'm okay with that. This last week, I felt a complete shift within my being towards stepping into a boldness that I have not ever experienced in my life. We stand on the precipice of some real change in this world, and until we're willing to be a voice for that change, the status quo is going to continue. I think a lot of the things that I've shared since the beginning of this year have possibly led toward a foundation for this talk today. So maybe you won't be surprised. But if you are surprised, I have already alerted my family members that pushback is possible. But I've never experienced a really quality push-up without some pushback. And if you really start to land in the spirit of the truth of who you are, you become almost like Chuck Norris. They said Chuck Norris doesn't do push-ups, he does earth downs. I want to share with us a little bit about the radical world-shifting implications of true oneness. Really understanding what it means. At the heart, I'm probably going to read today because I've sat with this all week, every day this week. I didn't lose any sleep over it, though, because I know this is a mandate. I know it more than anything I can tell you that I have personally ever known in the ministry time that I've had in 30 years of ministry, that this is a mandate. It's a heavy mandate. At the heart of unity and New Thought principles and philosophies is the principle of oneness. It's the idea that all of life is interconnected and arises from one single consciousness, a divine consciousness. It's the belief that we're all emanations and manifestations of the one source of life. But oneness is not passive. It is not weak, and oneness is not always nice. It is kind, but niceness is fake. Niceness is surface. Kindness, the root for kindness is the word kin, where there's a recognition that we are kin. It's more than just a feel-good philosophy. It is a radical, world-disrupting, power-challenging force. And it threatens the foundation of injustice. And this is why the attempts to silence it are happening right now. Oneness is not a philosophy that's adopted to shroud prejudice and privilege. Like, well, oppression isn't happening because we are one. In other words, you're not feeling the pain of racism, sexism, homophobia, families being torn apart because they're Mexican, etc. So it's no big deal. It's not real. I can just ignore it. That's actually called whiteness. Can I help us on Black History Celebration Day? That's really called whiteness. And I'm not dogging you because you're white. Look at me. I mean, this revelation of understanding white privilege for this guy, I'm like, have you seen how white I am? I'm even redheaded and freckle-faced. That's how white I am. Unless I get out in the sun in Florida, I'm almost translucent. But that's called whiteness. It's a privilege that we're born with that we don't realize that we have. I didn't realize I had it for many, many years. And then I started turning towards self-hatred about being white. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like I have a disease for being white. Until I realized that's not it at all. That's not even the request. The desire is not for you to hate yourself, but it's for you to recognize the position that you have and help others to be lifted to a higher level of equity, not just equality. There is a difference. So oneness, it is a disruptive belief system because it stands in the face of all of these systems that have been built to oppress others. Oneness isn't an escape into your privileged space. It is a radical way of being and living. It is dangerous to those who depend on division and hate. It is subversive to those who wield power through fear. It is revolutionary and evolutionary to systems that are propped up by the illusion of separation. Oneness is the most radical way we can live. And it doesn't insulate us or isolate us. It does the opposite. It takes the insulation off and the isolation away, and it invites us into a space that's going to make us feel pretty damn uncomfortable. Everybody okay? You still love me? So number one, and I don't know if I'll get through this today. There may be a part two, and we'll see what the crowd looks like. One, true oneness destroys the ignorant and the weak, fear-based view of God. True oneness, it gets rid of, destroys, and dismantles the theologies and the dogmas, the ignorant and the weak, fear-based view of God. I want to announce to you today and make it loud and clear going over the airwaves that big, angry ogre in the sky is dead. And in fact, never really existed. It's a lie propagated by religion to control the masses. It was the way that Constantine, along with the bishops and the popes of his time, the pope of his time, could merge a kingdom to create world domination. And it has worked very well. It has been injected into the veins of humanity. And I'm telling you, the game is off. The drug is wearing off. And as the drug wears off, we're waking up. And as we're waking up, we're starting to realize that for generations and millennia, we have been drugged with the drug of religion. As Lenin said, the greatest drug is religion. So today, I declare that true oneness dismantles and destroys any religious system that claims exclusivity, that claims a God of unconditional love, but rejects the weak, the poor, the homeless, the minority, and those who are non-white, trans, gay, etc. Oneness dismantles any religion that wants to use its power of the government to force others to abide by its preferences. It dismantles any religion that uses threats as an imaginary hell to psychologically manipulate people to join or to pay for and perpetuate their cult. Oneness dismantles any religion that claims to protect children but has been the haven for more sexual abuse of children than any other group in the world, while ignoring human trafficking and in turn supporting those who have been not only accused but convicted of sexual crimes. It dismantles any religion that positions its God as contrary to nature. Oneness dismantles any religion that moves to ban books about history in order to cover up its inability to face the truth about its history. Oneness dismantles any religion that endorses an end of the world scenario where God gets to kill billions of unbelievers to make the world a better place for us. True oneness dismantles these systems that have held people in oppression for generations and millennia. Is it hard to hear? Well, you know what? We may not be able to change everything we face, but we'll never change what we choose not to face. And in 2025, it's hard for me to believe that we even have to share these kind of messages. But we do. I realize now that I've been through this 20-year journey of unlearning and deprogramming and allowing the removal of this religious bigotry that was installed in me. I realize now that I've had 20 years to detox for this very moment. And I believe that there's a community of people here who have said we'll not allow anger to lead to malice or hatred, but we will allow anger to fill up the fuel tanks of this vehicle that is intentionally moving forward in love, joy, peace, equality, inclusion, and a radical view of a bigger and a better vision and version of God than what has been propagated on humanity. Our traditional religious structures depict a God that is separate from humanity, a being who judges, rewards, and punishes. But oneness obliterates that idea. If God is not separate from us, and God is in us as us, then we are no longer wrestling with a deity outside of us. But we are challenged to locate the power that is within us that brings us to that higher understanding. But here's the problem. It takes away the scapegoat of God did it or the devil did it, and most people want a reaction and not responsibility. Oneness introduces us so starkly to this inescapable unification between humanity and divinity that it makes it impossible for us to continue living in the way we've been living. You see, consciousness is everything. Consciousness is everywhere. It's everywhere and in everything all at once. There is no fall from grace, only forgetting who we really are. Any fall is in the mind, not in reality. These theological implications are radical. This new way of seeing God is radical because they tell us that there is no need for external salvation, and religion thrives on you moving toward external salvation and paying for it dearly, not with just your money, but with the stress that leads you toward fight, flight, or freeze. Because if they can keep you in fight, flight, and freeze, they can keep you from thinking with your creativity and with your imagination and keep you from operating from your divinity. You don't need salvation because you're already divine. Therefore, there's no need for religious control through fear. And if that happens, game over for the multi-trillion-dollar industry that literally props itself up with the propaganda that you need something and we have the secret. Pay us for it. True oneness directly threatens religious dogma. And any religious dogma ultimately leads to rabies. And if we can keep you sick, afraid, insecure, living in fear, we can unify you around the common enemy. And they found that it's much easier to unify people around a common enemy than it is around commonality. True oneness transcends the idol and the drug addiction to God. It's hard. It is hard to challenge yourself to move past what you've always believed was true. But it is what trailblazers do. It is what pioneers do. It is what people do when they really finally realize who they are and decide collectively as one voice to stand up for the truth. Well, I, for one, am not afraid of this administration. I am not afraid of this regime. I am not afraid of what's happening in the world where people are trying to be silenced or people are trying to silence others. I have no fear here because my life has already been laid down. You can't make a dead man afraid. And the call is for us to stop talking it and start walking it. While we always remember that what we see manifest through other beings is not the truth of who they are. It's the lie that they have bought into and the consumption of their very soul. But here's the thing, my friends. Can I tell you something that radically messed with me this last week? I got to tell you. My wife will tell you. I have gotten really weird lately. And I'm not even trying to. You thought I was weird up till now. I've gotten really strange. Because my wife dreams all of the time. But she'll tell you, I say to her, that's very interesting because I don't dream, and I'm having them now. And I'm having visitations. Oh my gosh, here we go. I'm going to make myself sound even more crazy. That I never dreamed of before. And I hope I've built enough trust with you for you to know this is not how I normally talk. This is not who I normally am. I'm not into the woo-woo. I was involved with so much of that in the Christian world, the charismatic world I grew up in. I mean, every Sunday somebody had a prophecy and somebody was fighting with the devil. It was every Sunday. And it was all the time around me, so I rejected it. I passed it off. I pushed it aside. But now I'm having these holy visitations that I cannot describe to you other than it's complete and total love. It's a light that I've never seen before in my life, because the light that we experience in our earth experience is not to be looked at. It's what we utilize to see. But this light that I'm having a visitation from, I can look right into and not be blinded. And it is asking me to no longer be quiet, to make a declaration that we're going to have those who are awake and those who are the walking dead simultaneously at one time in what's becoming a split earth. Because heaven and earth will pass away, but my word, this is scripture, my word will never pass away, and the word there is logic. The logic of God will never pass away. Here we are in the circulation of something fresh and new. And this is why we're hearing the mandate, stop trying to save a world that's already dead. Create a new one. And those who cannot come along, please understand, many of them have already turned off their humanity. Many of them have decided to not be human. So we send them love, and we don't wish violence toward them or hatred toward them, but we don't have time to be caught in the fight of the things that we see going on around us. It's time for us to put our eye on the prize and recognize our calling, that we are a holy priesthood, a holy generation, a peculiar people set apart to follow through with our divine mandate. I'm almost done. I'll try to come back to this next week if I feel directed. Number 2, oneness redefines diversity, identity, and individualism. I have realized that this Western culture has taught us that we are separate, that we're self-contained, that we are individuals, that we are independent. And yet, you can't breathe without the help of a tree. And if we're so independent, then why is it that you wear a mask when somebody else has COVID or the flu? You're so dependent and so connected that you even catch their viruses. I breathe in and I breathe out, and I share that with the rest of the world. I'm not independent, I'm also not codependent, but I am interdependent. I'm a part of the divine dance of this life force that we all emanate and manifest from. So we're redefining what diversity is. See, diversity would be division in higher consciousness, but higher consciousness is revealing itself through its diverse ways of being and showing up. In men and in women, in blue eyes and brown hair, and red hair and not much hair. It's diversity in dogs and cats and different types of birds and species, and yet it's all an emanation and a manifestation of the very same life force. Oneness invites us into a very radical way to see a shattering of the illusion of our separation. Religion wants you separate. Republicans want you separate from Democrats, and Democrats from Republicans. We've been lied to about the rest of the world. We've been lied to about our Arab brothers and sisters, our African brothers and sisters, our German brothers and our European brothers and sisters. We've been lied to about the rest of the world because there was a need to prop up. The agenda required separation. There is no such thing as a well-traveled bigot. But if you stay in your bubble, bigotry grows. This world was created by God. Just because there's other languages, other types of food, and other types of expressions, it doesn't mean that you're better and someone is worse. I'm seeing some of these intelligent. Did you see the Arab prince this last week, a letter that he wrote to our United States government? Read it, and you find Gandhi in there. You find Martin Luther King Jr. in there. You find Wayne Dyer in there. You hear higher consciousness in there, but if it's held back from you, you don't believe it. You believe they're all terrorists. And this is what is needed to keep our separation. It's what's needed for the ego of we're better than everyone else. Folks, we need to wake up. We have our own homegrown terrorism that's in the name of God and quoting Bible scripture. Because any group that can harm another in the name of God does not know God. When we understand that only oneness is, that there's only one thing happening, we can see that we no longer have to call you and me, us and them. We simply understand that we are a part of the whole, infinite, expressing itself, and we use terms like diversity because we see the variety. The implication here is that there's no such thing as the other. Pat yourself on the chest and say, there's no such thing as the other. And that can make it hard. Oh, that can make it hard because now you have to be able to try to look past Nazis to look for Christ. And sometimes you feel like you need a jackhammer to get this excavation to try to locate because it feels like it's concretized. This is what's hard about oneness. If we really believe it, then it's inviting us to not allow hatred to come up in us toward others who have a different belief system than we do. But it's also inviting us to recognize that there's no separation so that we lift our voice for oneness. And we remind ourselves and everyone else around us that those Mexican people who've become the galvanizing group of hatred to blame for every problem we have in this country are not our enemies. They're our family. They're our kindred. They're our brothers and sisters. And it's time for us to call it out. Any system that oppresses any group of people is not operating under the direction of the divine. It's the opposite. This means this rugged individualism that we think we have is a lie. Independence and codependence give way to interdependence, the circle dance of the divine. If we are radically interconnected, then personal success, personal wealth, and personal enlightenment are incomplete unless they serve the whole. If we are radically interconnected, then the demonizing and dehumanizing of any other is actually self-harm. Today, those children, those men and women who will be trafficked for the pleasure of other people, they are you, and you are them. The families that have been separated from each other as ICE agents have run into our schools to take children out of elementary school because they don't think their paperwork is complete. The Native Americans in this country who have been targeted and arrested simply because their skin was dark They were the people who were here before any white people showed up. If anyone's a citizen, they are. And yet they've been targeted. And that system that targets them is actually self-harm. Will you allow yourself to feel it? Will you allow enough of your humanity to wake up where you feel it? I know it's hard. It's hard to look in the mirror and realize that our inaction has created more space for those kinds of actions. But if we really say love is who we are, we got to do something. Not just say words. There is an evolutionary upgrade attempting to be born. And it's inviting us all into the shift. But if you decide you're not going to move into the shift, then you're just going to get shifted on. And it's going to create more pain for you. But the invitation is to be born again so that you can see the kingdom of God that is within you and take that authority to stand up, even in the face of threats, and say, no, not here, not now. We choose to live our motto that love is who I am. It's not something I say, it's who I am.